Welcome to an extremely exciting episode of the BarberShop, and today we have with us one of the most successful, if not the most successful entrepreneur, at least I have met in real life.
There was this entire phase, whether the valuation went up, whether the money started coming in the company, and people started to feel that, okay, B2B itself is a space. To a point where business got synonymous with B2B.
Yeah.
We saw so many different companies coming together, and we believe that India as an economy needs very India-specific solutions. As an organization, you cannot have settled out, because then you are actually judging the other 99.9% people who are with you. People end up doing what they are being asked. I'm saying it's important to understand where the world is as an input into what you're doing. But if you define how you want to build a business and run a business basis someone who has not even built and run a business, then it's not right. But as I said, there are sine waves, right? If there are waves where you're at the top and the bottom. And for me, when I am at the rock bottom, because there would be times you will have a lot of stress and everything, I just sit, look up, and then you see so many people sitting. And
why do businesses really need consultancy?
Right. Welcome to an extremely exciting episode of the BarberShop. It's amazing for me to have this now happen in front of a live audience. And today we have with us one of the most successful, if not the most successful entrepreneur, at least I have met in real life. Okay. That's the way I would kind of put it. Ruchi, thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with us.
Thank you.
I remember interacting with you long back when you were my boss at McKinsey for like a period of 3 or 4 days when we were writing a proposal for one of your clients. I don't remember. I don't think you remember, but I do. We were in the basement of the McKinsey office. But at that time also, I think one of the things that starkly stood out about you was your sense of just being an extremely normal and humble human being. I think what you and Ashish have achieved, we'll talk at length about OfBusiness and Oxyzo, and very thrilled to be someone who works with you on that front as well. But it's very well documented what a phenomenally successful journey you've had, right? Your names now come up in, Decacon and highest net worth entrepreneurs, and, people just are in awe of you, including me, and for all the right reasons. But what really is something I wanted to go deeper on today from your journey is from that time in 2011 when, you were working with me on a proposal, to starting a company, to building out 2 extremely successful, profitable businesses, is the management of phenomenally high amount of success with just the grace and humility that you have. So thank you for coming in and sharing, but I wanted to start with that.
Thank you, Shantanu, and it's just make me feel so nice right now. So thank you for that. If I look back to where we are today, I think everything is a process, right? And what we see of OfBusiness and Oxyzo, it's still in that journey that I think there's a lot to be done. Yes, there is a lot written about us. There was a time that nothing was written about us as well. Right? And every process has its ups and downs, There's a sine wave to everything, right? And if you can stay the same when you are at that part of a sine wave and when you are at the lowest phase, and that's how it equalizes. Right? For us as individuals, we believe we are representatives of business on Oxyzo, right? And for an entrepreneur or for any person who is actually leading any business, it's a matter of great pride that the name of the company actually defines you. It's like when you say, okay, when you have parents and when your kids and parents like, "Hamara bacha naam roshan karega," and you want to be known by the name of your kids. So it's like that. You build something and you get known by the company that, okay, the company is actually on the right trajectory, doing well, etc. And all the other things, whether you get quoted as a net worth, any quote of yours comes, that doesn't give you happiness. What gives you happiness? Okay, the company is being talked about in a great spirit. people are looking up to it? Can it set an example? Can it set a benchmark? And for that, it's like your kid is doing well and you're getting known by the kid's own reputation. So I think when the company becomes more important than you as individuals, and that is a sign which actually defines any of us as entrepreneurs. And I think if you believe in that, then it's never about you anymore. Because you as individual, whether it's Ashish, myself, Bhuvan, Nitin, Vasant, anybody in the team, then we are representatives of that company, right? And we are the face of that company, and that's what we represent.
That's a very interesting point, Ruchi. I think very few people are able to distinguish between individual and institution at a founder level, especially in the initial days. Representing the institution becomes more important than representing the individual, which is very hard for founders to do, because a lot of times it's the founder's irrational, disproportionate vision that is actually driving the vision of the institution. Did you guys do that from the very beginning? That the company is separate and company comes first, and we define this institution with the principles that we want, like we believe it to be, to take it forward, but we are now custodians of the institution and not the institution itself as founders.
So Shantanu, if I go back, because obviously most of us had worked extensively before we started, and as I look at not just the founding team, but the entire top team at both OfBusiness and Oxyzo, I find that sense of honesty towards the profession, or that sense of saying that we have to do the right thing by what we are supposed to do, right? And that's why we are internally define something like company first. So everybody in their mind is thinking about how do we do the right thing by the company and not the right thing by a particular individual, okay? There is no concept of a boss that, okay, someone is working to please an individual. Someone is working to say what is right for the institution. And because we individually also have been through that journey, that's something that's so ingrained that automatically you try to, you try to push that talent, or you try to encourage that behavior, that if this is a particular decision that needs to be made, then it has to be made keeping that company first thought process rather than an individual first attitude that, okay, what will say Ashish say to this, or what will Ruchi say to this, what will Bhuvan say to, or anybody for that matter. And I think that is something that is core to what we do, how we are, and I think that is core to preserve also for the long term. And from that perspective, if I look at it, it's not that was a motto that was defined on day one. It just over time, it was like, okay, this is right for the company. This is the right thing to do in the long term. Okay, even if there is a midterm loss, this is the right path. Correct. And automatically, I think within the third year or fourth year, we started to say this word. All of us started to say this word, company first. Right. So, and that's something that if you were to tell me that what is that one thing that I would really, really want that we can preserve, is this value or this thought process that company first than any individual for that matter.
It's amazing though. Actually, when you start thinking company first, you start doing things that you guys have done, which is amazing. I think it sets such an example. I remember Ashish telling about how every year you make sure that a 2%, 1 or 2% ESOP pool upside is, kind of, you add to the ESOP pool, which involves dilution for everyone, but still that happens. And then you make it very public, and you're also very generous about not only allocating, but also making sure that people recognize value from ownership of both OfBusiness and Oxyzo. Where does that sensibility of sharing, making people successful, is that something you guys defined on day one? Or is it something that evolved like company first? Or does it come from personal value systems that you and Ashish and the other founders kind of come with from your families and the work before? Because it's unique, it's rare, and it's something which you are very explicit about.
I think I actually will relate it to one of the conversations I was having in one of the chats, and they said, okay, how have things changed for you when you were at McKinsey? Obviously, McKinsey is an amazing institution, right? To how things are right now when you go to office, how do you think differently? And the thing that clicked to me and is the fact that when I was at McKinsey or any institution, the thought process is very much about how good I am doing. Okay, what's my rating? How well did I do this on this particular project, right? What do my juniors think about me when they actually evaluate me, and what do my seniors think about me? So it's a lot about me.
Yeah.
Am I doing well, right?
Yeah.
And then when you are in the process of building something, it suddenly becomes about saying that, okay, how well is the company doing? Because when we sit across you, the first question is, how is business?
How business, yeah.
How is business, right? How is business? Business is what? Business is what we collectively as people do, right? There is an idea, right? Sometimes we think entrepreneurship is like someone coming up with this great idea.
Yeah.
I think it's more about execution. And who executes? People. So suddenly, your thought process becomes, okay, who are the people who are doing really well? How do we make them successful? So, I mean, for me, the biggest change from then to now, and it's not that, okay, I've sat down and thought through what it is. It suddenly becomes like, okay, these 10 people are doing amazingly well. How do we give them more opportunities? Okay, this person has already reached this level. Can we create more opportunities for them? And then success, the definition of success becomes more in terms of saying that how successful are people around you or people you're working with, because then it defines the success of an institution. And then that calibrates into your individual success, but you've not started thinking, okay, my individual success. It's just saying that, okay, great people, great job, let's make it together. And suddenly everybody gets known from that institution's name, right? So that's what I would say.
It's a very, because human beings are wired to think individual first, family second, company third, society fourth. That's usually how you would we are tribal in nature that way, right? We are kind of we were herd animals. Yeah. That's why we tend to binge eat, because we feel like we will not get the next meal for a while. So we satisfy ourselves first, then we satisfy people very close to us, and then so on. That's just naturally how human beings do it. But and you see that you look at publicly listed large businesses, typically would not have a lot of indexation of ownership with the people. I think HDFC Bank may be one of the very few examples of that. But if you look at any of the 7,000 listed companies, you typically see that it's concentrated, and it's natural for that to be the case. I find it amazing, and honestly, it's really inspired what we do at Bombay Shaving Company in our own small way, right? Which is make sure that you up the ESOP pool always. Make sure that you have explicit conversations with your people about how much wealth is there on the table for you, which is great, by the way. So we now have 23, 24-year-old kids who first job or maybe second job come in and say, hey, Shantanu, in the performance evaluation time, right? Can I retire at Bombay Shaving Company? And I'm like, you're 23. You're like, yeah, but I want to be able to, the optionality of retirement is more important than retirement. So I'm like, cool, that's how the generation is thinking. I think it's a resource surplus generation in general, and it's getting more and more so. But amazing to see as promoters or founders, you guys are actually treating success as a byproduct of being generous, not treating being generous as a result of being successful. And they're two very different things.
It's their right, actually, Shantanu. Means that a founder does not create an institution. It's a group of people. It's people who are into creating something because they feel that they can identify with the institution, and at some point the institution will become their identity, right? And if you have that thought, and you talked about individual, you talked about family, and then profession. For us, for me personally, and people say that, okay, you had a baby when you guys were starting up and all that. It's like, I didn't have one, I had two. I delivered, and at the same time, OfBusiness was the baby, and hence people at OfBusiness are family, either way. And I'm not saying that we're not selfish. I am selfish, because when we go to office, that is the source of energy, right? If you look at our office, it will be like everybody has the same seating, right? It's open.
Yeah.
There are no cabins, there's nothing. Why? It's not that we're doing something like extraordinarily generous, the word you use.
Yeah.
It is essentially saying that is what gives us energies as individuals. And that is what will actually push us to perform even better, because then people are working so hard around, people are pushing their own boundaries to actually deliver to something. And we better do our jobs because we have a role cut out for each of us. It's not, our role is not to, sit for just, and represent the company. Yeah, we have specific roles during our daytime work, and we better do it because we owe it to everybody who's sitting around on that role. I mean, there would be times, as I said, there are sine waves, right?
Yeah.
If there are waves where you're at the top and the bottom, and for me, when I am at the rock bottom, because there would be times you will have a lot of stress and everything, I just sit, look up, and then you see so many people sitting, and
What am I worried about?
get back to work. So yeah.
I wanted to talk about the baggage of success.
Yeah.
And we spoke about Louis Capaldi, right? He said something very interesting. He'd written one of the best performing songs last year. As a 22, 23-year-old, someone who became big on social and then kind of got his own records and then was filling up Wembley, right? So he was like Ed Sheeran, ke baad he was the next guy, right? He basically said he loved making music. Have you guys heard of Louis Capaldi? You heard of it, right? He loves making music. He's just one of those very naturally gifted musicians. He said, I used to love making music before I was successful. But the moment I became extremely successful, the next time I went back to the studio to start creating my next album or my next song, I could never like any of the stuff I made because I just felt that this is just not good enough. This will not be as successful as that. And I just stopped enjoying and I started, he actually started rejecting himself a lot, needed to kind of get back on confidence and so on. And it just came out of this extreme success. I'm sure that happens to you guys where there is this fear of failure, which is like 1,000 times worse because you've been so successful over the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
But talk about that a little bit. How do you manage success and still take risks?
It's actually, so firstly, I believe where we are standing right now, there is still a lot to do, right? And in part of the process, what seems as an external view think success, in our minds, still we are on that journey to say there is a long way to go. And if you're tuned into the fact that there's a long way to go, then you tune into the fact that while in that process, you would actually make a lot of mistakes. Right? If in your mind, you have already benchmarked that you're successful and you've already reached that epitome or the peak of Mount Everest, right? Then it's like, okay, which more peak I have to go?
Yeah. Then
you have to find that next peak. Yes, there are a lot of pressures which get added up as you grow. Right? I would tend to compare it with a life journey. When you're a kid, I always wanted to grow up very fast. Right? You grow very fast. Okay, I can do this. I'll become, you just feel that that's your calibration of being successful or happy, or you have the freedom to do whatever you want. You become a little, you start working, it's like, okay, you got into IT, you got into this, you got into that, and it's like success, right? Yeah. What can be better, right? So if you define that what can be better and this is what can be better, this is the best, then you would always want to compare and say that, do I have an experience which is even better than that?
Yeah.
But if you are in the phase saying that everything is a part of the process, right? And success is just being honest to what you're supposed to do in that moment, then I think it keeps you going. If success is, okay, the milestone this year is this, right? And you achieve it, or you get to there, or plus minus 5%, then how quickly you shift gears to saying what is next. And internally, Ashish actually coined this, which said on to next. So whenever we declare this is how the year ended, and it signs off saying on to next. So you are in the process. And if that process is this year, this moment, this is what we need to do. And in that moment, there will be ups and there will be downs. And yes, success does come with the fact that everybody is kind of watching you. And I mean, in the initial 3-4 years, not much was said, not much was written. I think we had a lot more, you could flex yourself to make a lot more many mistakes, right? And today it will be like, okay, if you make this mistake, you don't know if I'm sitting across and we had this conversation, it goes live, and one fine day I see some tweet which says Ruchi Kalra said so and so, right? A minor mistake of whatever I say could, or what you would say, you experienced it yourself, right? So I think that's the burden of success, that I think get evaluated a lot more externally, scrutiny. I think the thing is, how do you balance that you are not scrutinizing yourself every day? That I've already reached this level, and if you're evaluating, whether in a good sense or a bad sense, then it hurts the process, in my mind.
I always wonder whether once you reach a certain point as a company or as a group of companies in your case, is perspective something we use to kind of reduce self-doubt? Because self-doubt is limiting and oftentimes debilitating in most cases. But the perspective of the fact that, okay, our history shows that we have been tremendously capable as a team and as an organization. There is no need for self-doubt anymore. Or is it still as prevalent as it used to be maybe 7-8 years back for you guys? How do you deal with कि हम कर पाएंगे कि नहीं और मैं कर पाऊंगी कि नहीं या मेरे में है कि नहीं?
So Shantanu, 2 parts to it. One is the organization and one is you as an individual.
Correct.
As an organization, you cannot have self-doubt, because then you are actually judging the other 99.9% people who are with you.
Correct.
You could be wrong in your strategy. You could have a doubt, but that's like, you could have a doubt in terms of whether this is the right thing to do or not. That's fine. That's part of conducting business. But once you are in it and saying, can OfBusiness do this? Can Oxyzo do it? That is unpardonable. You cannot. Why? Because you would have thought something and actually set the direction. Achieving that direction is full-on execution. Right? You might not, okay, you've set a target, maybe you cannot do it this year, maybe you can do, that's a different thing. But the saying that can we get there is actually passing a judgment to a lot of other people. Right? Now, when it comes to self-doubt, as an entrepreneur or as an individual, and everybody goes through those cycles. And in that point, what works at least for me is that I can take out the me out of it, self out of it, and then say that the implication for others around. And I often share this, used to share this in my earlier part, is that when people used to prep for interviews and all those things, and McKinsey, we used to go to campus and all that. And some people would say, okay, sometimes I freeze in an interview. What do you do? What are your tips you suggest? I said, listen, once I froze in an interview, okay, it was this, a job interview or something. It was very long back, right? Post campus. And then it's like, I completely messed up the first one. And second one, I had to go, and I was like, went to the washroom, and this big mirror in front of me. Like, nobody will come and do this interview on your behalf. You can do it. And you better enjoy the interview, because you might not get a chance to meet this person ever again. Right. And then we went to I had that interaction, and I honestly, in that, I just felt that when you free yourself of your own talking duck here, it was a great conversation. Yeah. It translated into a great outcome also. But the fact is that you have to just sometimes face yourself in the mirror, saying that, either you face yourself saying that nobody will come and actually, do it in your place. Or the second thing that you do is you just look up to a lot of people around you and say that this is not about you. This is about a lot of people. So let's not get that self and become selfish at this point. You can have your low moments and you can just go and, but it has to be about others. That's the only way to get out of the self-doubt, is to think about others around you. But that works sometimes.
That's incredible. Tell me about what it's like to um, be a co-founder with also your life partner and someone as interestingly entertaining as Ashish. I've rarely met someone who is you guys together are just phenomenal. Ashish is the co-founder of Ruchi, and also they're married with a beautiful daughter Khushi, and also was at McKinsey before, and I also has come on the BarberShop before. So there's a lot of context to him. But I've just someone who kind of takes himself so lightly and at the same time is so full of gravitas.
Yeah.
And like for you, I think it's very rare to see someone who combines exceptional like niceness and intellect. So that combination is amazing. But I would love to know whether, and a lot of people are founding companies with their spouses, with their sibling, with I met someone whose co-founder is his mom.
Yeah.
So they're kind of getting together and starting a food brand. But tell me a little bit about the dynamics of the relationship. You both are like very successful individually prior to your founding journeys as well, but very different people.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Is it again something you take in your stride? I'm sure it's more challenging than that.
So it's been a very interesting journey, and I think over the last 7 years, what I believe that's worked very well for us is the fact that because we had seen each other in a professional setting in McKinsey as well.
Did you work together then?
Yes, we met on a project. So and the fact is that how much mutual respect you have for each other, because you have a thought process. You want things in a particular way. Your spouse would want things in a particular way because of the individual thought process. And when you are on a professional journey, it is very natural to have a set way of doing things, right? And for us, because there is that mutual respect that, okay, in this area, or that the work or the boundaries that we've drawn around ourselves, this is something that you can completely rely on for the other person. That helps. I think mutual respect, trusting each other, and actually working with your spouse or your sibling, it actually has a very big trust factor. A lot of people say, okay, how do you work with your spouse? Because there could be some equation at home, at office, and so on and so forth. But honestly, if you think about two founders, irrespective of the relationship, there has to be that mutual trust. And you also have a co-founder, right? And you can say, okay, if he's done it, I completely back him. Yeah. And there are a lot of founders who split up primarily because either the trust is not there, or we're trying to infringe on the other person's territory.
Correct.
So it's not to do with the fact that you have a personal connect in terms of a relationship. Yeah. It is about saying that, do you value what the other person brings on the table, irrespective of what your relationship is with that person?
Correct.
Right? And the best of friends can split apart, brothers can split apart, right? If that mutual trust is not there. And as a spouse, and not just that, I think all of us as the founding team, there is that appreciation that this person is great at this. Yeah. This is their space, and we'll just blindly go by what this person is doing in this space. Yes, we're always there. We are available. Whenever there's a joint discussion, everybody will be, part of that discussion. We're there to help each other, but we will never stand up and say, okay, in this area, you should do this. So that's your area. Right? So
I love how actually you're right. I think Kunal, Bell, and Rohit at Snapdeal, I was listening to one of their interviews just today.
Yeah.
And they kind of I think Kunal phrased it very, very nicely. He said, there's unshakable trust.
Yeah.
Unshakable trust. And the trust is not because we agree with each other on all things. In fact, in all cases, we might disagree.
Yeah.
Our judgments might differ, but we will never, ever believe that the intent of the other person is misplaced.
Absolutely.
So, collective alignment on intent solves for differences.
Absolutely, Shantanu. And I can talk about it myself, because you described Ashish also. When I think about a decision that he's taking, and if I have a different view, but I know that the intent is so aligned again, it goes back to company first. Again, it goes back to the fact in terms of my belief in his capability of his thought process and all that, that it helps me see the other side of things. So the intent and the respect of the experience that comes around. And we are very different people. He can think big, vision, put it all together. On my side, it will be more in terms of building blocks together, getting things around it, right? So, and I think, and similarly, if I have to think about Bhuvan, yeah, exceptional in terms of how he gets people together. You know, you look at him and you're like, real, when you think about integrity, you think about how to, you know, be people first. And it is true for everybody, right? And if you can see the great thing about each person, and I think McKinsey does this phenomenal thing in terms of saying that people could be different in terms of the MBTI types and so on and so forth. But there is a strength to each person. And if you can just, you know, get all those strengths together, it becomes a force multiplier.
What's been the most humbling moment of the last 7, 8, 9 years of business and Oxyzo? Where was that moment where you felt, okay, this is now becoming way bigger, and you feel humbled by the size of what you're doing? Was there a moment? Would love for you to elaborate on that.
I think it was a phase for me, rather than a moment. And it was the fact that we in our journey had actually, it's like you keep at it, right? There are moments wherein you're trying to explain what you do, and a lot of people don't understand what you're trying to do. Right? And then slowly you're chipping.
Sorry, but hold your thought.
Yeah.
You pivoted a lot in the initial few years. I don't like there are a lot of things, and I remember Ashish saying that we pivot a lot, but I love how fast we're able to do it.
Yeah. More than pivot, it's more about saying that we keep on doing these smaller experiments. And then when they don't work, we actually shut it down. Saying that, okay. Right. So it's like a path that we have taken, and then we'll say, okay, let's do small, you know.
Tributaries of that.
Yes, exactly. And then if it's not working, our focus remains as to what we're doing. And in fact, in the first year, yes, we did start a lot of things in terms of, because we wanted to always say that how do we capture the full B2B ecosystem, along with saying transaction, along with saying different types of categories, to saying credit, to saying some great SaaS products and so on and so forth, right? So that idea was great in terms of saying how do you actually provide for everything. But then you have to sometimes try those smaller experiments, saying that, okay, we tried statistics, nahi chalega, hamare system mein nahi chalega, let's cut it down, right? Bahut chota MRI items nahi chalega, let's cut it down. So I think we cut those things faster in terms of some of the experiments that we do. But yes, overall, saying that we stay on course, and to your question in terms of saying that what was that moment? So I think for a very long time, and then when we saw that funding wave as well, and we're like, okay, बाकी लोगों को हमारा मतलब business समझ क्यों नहीं आता है, मतलब what we are trying to do. It was like, okay, we're like, we can't be that bad in communicating. Like McKinsey consultants, right?
When was this?
The series B. Series B was pretty tough, right? And then slowly series C. Then it was like steps, and we knew that the business was doing well, right? Yeah. And there used to be these discussions in terms of saying that, okay, you're focusing too much on return, rather than are you focusing that much on growth? Will you let go of a little bit of return for growth? Yeah, बहुत questions होते हैं, happen बहुत, right? And I think after a point, and then you have to make daily business decisions to say, okay, yeah, this will slow us down, but this is important, right? Whether it's in terms of saying, okay, compliance, process, you put the right building blocks at the right time. I'm not saying you have to do it from day one, but you have to do it along your journey. And then there was this entire phase wherein whether the valuation went up, whether the money started coming in the company, right? And people started to feel that, okay, B2B itself is a space.
Yeah.
Pehle, we had to explain why are we actually doing this business for SMEs, manufacturing, and this infrastructure is there. Because for the uninitiated, it's not very, easy to understand that this world is what makes India. So it's like, okay, what is the US comparable? I said we don't have it, right? And to a point where of business got synonymous with B2B.
Yeah.
And we, heard people saying, okay, we are off business of XYZ country.
Yeah.
Right? And then you say that you define that, it becomes an adjective. It becomes a noun in itself. It becomes a noun that, okay, B2B is a space. And it can be made into a big business. Right? And that phase for me, I would say was very humbling to say that you actually define a vocabulary there or a niche. And then we saw so many different companies coming together and people, attempting it. And we believe that India as an economy needs very India-specific solutions. And, going and meeting businesses which are actually the cornerstone of India.
Absolutely. I think we work with a lot of, for example, our vendor ecosystem, our packagers, our warehouses, they're all the MSMEs and SMEs of, and this is the backbone of the Indian economy, right? Absolutely. But to see how they operate, to see how cash efficient they are, to see how capital deployment for them works so differently from the way it works for, let's say, venture funded businesses or brands.
Yes.
And, they've been at it for 15, 20, 25 years. There's a lot of capex sometimes. There's just a lot of machinery. Sometimes they get buried under debt for a certain period of time. Sometimes they have exchange risk exposure. And you just feel here there's so much that entrepreneurs who are smaller scale, and because they're smaller scale, the wiggle room is much lower.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So servicing them, like in retrospect, obviously feels this obviously is a large space, but I can imagine it being difficult to execute in the initial days before you kind of got critical escape velocity to make it happen.
Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself as an entrepreneur? Like from being a McKinsey partner, where things were, I think processes were so well defined at the firm, your expectations are well defined, your path to the next thing is well defined. Like, there's just so much process, but here you're creating it. What is the one thing that you've learned about yourself over the last 7, 8, 9 years that you didn't know before? Like, what is it? Like, entrepreneurship is a mirror, right? So what has it shown you that surprised you?
So one is the domain itself. When I got into McKinsey, I was like, I don't think I'll ever do financial services. Okay. Within this first 1.5, 2 years, I was doing financial services and I loved it. And I think that was the sole reason I was in McKinsey for that long. It's lovely people, great, I would say, nature of work and so on. I think when we started off business, we started as a B2B platform. And then we said that we'll set up our own NBFC, Oxyzo, right? And which is now expanding into other financial services areas. I just love it. And I think from a point of saying that, you don't know, you have some preconceived notions about a space, to saying that you love the space, which has actually, made you stay so long with an institution, and then being part of, building one. I just love it. I think the core of when people used to say in McKinsey that you should find your passion, and that actually takes you a very long way. I think that is for me the biggest thing, though I understood it at McKinsey, but just living it, I think this is it. I mean, for me to realize, and because when you're a kid, and this like talking about decades back, right? You like think about it as saying that at that time it was supposed to be engineering and medical, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, as I could have science le lo, then you will have all options which are open to you. Great. And then you pick up science, like, engineering कर लो, उसके बाद तो आप MBA भी कर सकते हो, तो एक तरह से commerce also is open and this is also open. Great, let's do that, right? IIT कर लिया, अब तो आप MS भी कर सकते हो, right? It's always about choosing an option which gives you a lot of options. Correct. And suddenly from diverging, you actually converge to something that you actually like doing day in, day out. It is something that you never knew that this is what it is. And it's not serendipity. Obviously, there's a path to it.
Correct.
But you feel good about it.
But have you, financial services used to scare me also. Like not only because of the complexity of the problems, but also like longer working hours. The people are a lot more intense. Generally, if you meet bankers and people in the industry today, they're intense human beings, right? And that there's just a lot at stake. I think financial services, there's just a lot at stake. Have you found mentors for yourself, given that you are kind of redefining the industry in a lot of ways? You are building a business in the space. Do you have people outside of business, of course, within, but outside who kind of coach you on how to think about industry building?
More than the coaching, it's the fact that you should, you're connected to the field. You keep talking. You keep, exchanging ideas. Mentorship is more in terms of saying that how can you derive energy from people around you. So for me, it's more about the people that you get to work with. But at the same time, yes, there's always this network. Financial services is a very small world. Now that you mentioned, when you were saying that you always cared about it, the most interesting thing about FS, which I learned over time, is the fact that the simplest of things can be actually said in the most complex way.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? So financial services or finance and accounts is you need money, you get money, you give money. You get money at a particular amount, you give money at a particular rate. It's as simple as that. It's as mathematical. You need money for your business. It's cash flow, right? If you look at your moms, they're the best cash flow managers at home, right? When you coming from a middle class background, you will know कि कहाँ पे कितना आना है महीने में कितना खर्च होना है क्या होना है. Nobody manages cash flow better than women as well, right? I've met a lot of women who are like, okay, we're a little scared of numbers and all that. It's basic, but it's a fear that you have, right? And going back to financial services, it's a lingo.
Yeah,
it's a lingo.
It's such a Wall Street thing, no? Like you just create terms like because you want. I think
you want to feel good about yourself.
One is that. I also think there is intellectual arbitrage so that you can sell something which sounds complex to a customer who would ask 5 questions. At least in one sheet, वो थोड़ा होता है ना कि only call it, make it acronymize it and so on. But
I think being in it, what works best for us is that we try to, at least in all our interactions with our customers, just simplify it as much as possible. Many of the people who've actually been with us, it's not that they had a lot of prior FS experiences. So it's a combination of team of young, talented people along with people who are more experienced so that we can at least keep our lingo internally and with our customers. Very, very simple. And, just not complicate the hell out of the terms and conditions. So I think that's been a cornerstone for what we do. And it can be simplified.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But do you have people you look up to in the industry?
Yeah, a lot of them. It is a space where you will find a lot of people you can actually look up to what they've built. And it's at the end of the day, one of the oldest professions. Right?
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, there is a lot to learn from people who've already built it. Right?
Amazing. What you talk about the sinusoidal waves of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
We spoke about humbling, but talk a little bit about the troughs of the last. And I don't think there have been many, but I'm sure there have been many which have been private.
Yeah.
Right? But talk through how, like, what they were, or make it instantify that for us in terms of how do you convert that into something that goes up.
I think more important
individually more than institutionally.
More than institutional, individually also. I think you don't need to think of it as it's my problem alone. You can't make it a full institution's problem because institution is your responsibility, right? It has to be a collective problem always, right? And that's why whenever someone says, okay, I'm trying to set up something, first thing is saying that, okay, who are the couple of people who will come along with you? Because it's never an individual journey. It has to be people that you can actually trust. So it's a collective thing. So it's never a secret for us that only I will know or only one person. We will make it a collective problem. And I think this is something that I've learned more from Ashish than my own learning, right? It is a collective problem for a set of people. Right? And when you make it as a collective problem, it's suddenly what happens is you can split responsibilities. Something, it's like, it feels that it can be managed. Right? Otherwise, your own devils internally there'll be this angel and there'll be a devil standing here and keep speaking to you, right? So rather than an angel and a devil standing and speaking to you, it is always better that you have a live person.
Yeah.
Than an own version of AI speaking to you. Right? A live person to speak, to share, to split. कि तुम ये कर लो, ये वो कर लो. Sometimes you just need someone to just hear you out.
That is true.
Right? कि भाई ये चल रहा है, कैसा है? Why is this happening? What? Okay. So from that perspective, I think the first thing is just make it as a collective problem, like what we were talking about in terms of fundraising, right? There were times, and I
Would
think
all you do it together, fundraising, or would like
everybody has different responsibilities, right? For example, there we, and these are at different stages, right? Early stages, not many more different types of responsibilities. Late stages, a different responsibility in terms of talking to the investor, to the fact that diligence, right? It becomes a collective effort, right?
Correct.
Because everybody has their own area. Then it becomes more collective that way. And from a perspective of saying that, I mean, you said, just give an instance or something. When we were going through the phase of saying that, okay, this is what it is, and there would be tough times in terms of raising money, then you say, okay, how do we conserve cash? Right? There would be times wherein even if you have cash, how do you have the right metrics during phases like COVID, INFS, and all those things? And at that moment, you won't believe it, like when we had COVID period, because we were in lending as a business, and I think that's one of the places where a lot of stress was expected, right? But I think the ecosystem was very resilient than to what happened in other countries as well. They were like, okay, we are creating something we call like small groups, and all of them had different responsibilities. How do we release cash from here? What do we do? This is, and there were like 25 people involved. It was not one person's or 5 people's problem. Suddenly it became an organized, and it gave us so much meaning.
Yeah.
It gave us all a collective goal. And I think many of the times whenever we have been as an organization or a set of people at the lowest point, suddenly it has united us even more.
Wow.
Right? So I won't say like 100% of the time, but if I reflect back at any kind of issues that are coming to my mind now that you asked me that question, they just became a collective problem. And is all the, you could say, self-doubt goes out of the window, because now you have a goal which defines what you need to do for this year or this period or 10 days or 20 days.
That's interesting how you make issues seem smaller when you make them collective, because that's, again, it's very counterintuitive. Because if it's everybody's problem, it's nobody's problem.
Yeah.
That's also what people say, right? Because accountability shared is accountability lost.
Yeah, but then it's not that you're just sharing it, but you're also defining a plan what everybody needs to do. That is one thing, right? I personally am a little bit more private as a person. So I'm also like, okay, ye problem hai, do we need to even share? But I think collectively when it comes to, and that's why I said this is something that I picked up from Ashish a lot more, saying that no, this is something, we discuss it, we split, we workload, and then this is how we move forward. And I think that has been very powerful. And going back to your earlier question, if I have to say what I've learned around this, so these are things that I have picked up in the journey in terms of saying that this could be an alternate way of going through the troughs.
Is it harder to be vulnerable about your problems or about issues that you or maybe your organization is facing as you scale and as the stakes become higher and higher? Is vulnerability become something that comes at a premium? Because that's easier when you're smaller.
Yeah.
It's not that easy when you're large, and then when you can't share, then you...
But there's always a set of people whom you can share it.
You can?
Right? I think so. Yes, there's always that worry that how will people interpret it, right? Because there is only this much that you can say that, and people will say, okay. But if people are used to the fact that whenever there will be a question, and you say that if you have to sail through and you have to build this huge boat, it can only be built when, maybe there'll be 5% of them, 10% of them who will not believe in the common cause. But then maybe they'll stay at the sidelines to watch what the remaining 90% are doing, or maybe remaining 80% are doing. And if those 80% can actually build that Noah's Ark, then all of us swim through, right?
It's incredible how you think about institutional building. Every time you speak about your business, you think about it institutionally. And I think it's just phenomenal, whether it's, the way you think about wealth creation for your people, to how you think about collective problem solving, to how you think about company first. And by the way, it's amazing how consistent you are, not only in time, but also in people. So every time I meet someone at OfBusiness or Oxyzo, do you guys do a lot of internal communication of this nature? Do you have a lot of town halls, emails? I see Ashish is fairly active on LinkedIn. Like, does this, like, is there a lot of communication of the same message over and over again, which kind of leads to this institution building habit? Or is it just something that naturally you've just collected people that resonated and it just happened? It's not easy to do this like this.
It's not that. It's not that day one. That's why I said it was not that the logo company first was defined on day one, right? It was something that emerged with the set of people. Means the organization threw it out that this is what we are, right? And I'm thankful to, because for us, as I was saying, the real sense of energy, and I'm like so thankful to everybody that I personally work with, that they give us space to participate in what they are doing, right? So I think it's the set of people and the culture which gets built over time. It's not a thing about saying that, okay, there is a constant community, because you can't define it. It will come very forced, right? And because we've been part of institutions which have, it's something which is unsaid.
That's so many counterintuitive things. Because like I remember when Naushir had told me about the values at Bombae Pad, he said, he quoted George Bernard Shaw. He said something about the fact that there is no amount of communication that is basically enough. Like you have, like the biggest illusion of, what was it say? I think the biggest illusion of communication is the fact that it has happened. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it because it's never there.
We do, and I think we have this where some of us actually do what we say monthly calls, wherein we tell about the company's performance. We don't hide anything, right? It's left to interpret. It's not that I want you to think in a particular way. That's why I'm telling you in a particular way, because I think people are very smart, right? I mean, all your employees, whatever you might think, the more you try to hide, behind a veil, you don't want to, people will assume things, right? So it's like, this is where we are. This month we did badly. This month we did great. These are the people who did great. This were the people who did that great. Then it becomes, theek hai. This is what it is, right? It's not that there are great strategic decisions being made in one corner office. This is what it is, right?
Wow. Incredible. Where do you see this institution going? I know that you guys are believers in institutions beyond you guys, and in terms of not only people but also in terms of time. So institutions that outlast you guys. Absolutely. But what do you think OfBusiness and Oxyzo is going to be over the next 10, 20, 30 years? Like, do you have something in mind?
So we can put it in numbers. And obviously, there are some immediate next steps over some time, and then there will be different milestones at different points in time. But I think it's more about saying that, how do we ensure that from, you get to a full service for institutions or for enterprises in India, whether it's a very micro enterprise to a small enterprise to a medium enterprise, mid-size enterprise, or maybe at some point corporates as well, that they need a B2B backbone. They will need a lot of raw material to credit, to different services, to technology solutions. And how do you become that backbone, which is not just giving them materials, actually producing their own material and giving it to them, to actually providing credit for their needs, to actually doing this. So I think the idea is that, how do you keep enhancing and keep building that backbone for businesses in India? And we can put numbers to it, we can
To
say,
put
okay,
some
there is
numbers
there is this entire question about going IPO, but those are only intermittent steps. I think what's very important from a vision perspective is saying that how do we become that backbone which defines, anything to do with business. You will have someone to service it, right?
That's amazing. That's actually amazing. Are you guys IPO? Like, I romanticize IPOs a lot.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's a huge milestone. I think we've had 3 or 4 in the venture funded world.
Yeah.
And I think it'll mature over a period of time, especially if companies like yours do go public. I think the fact that people in this room can go and buy a share, it itself is a beautiful thing, right?
Correct.
But is it something that's, well, a lot of founders have a very different point of view that IPO just comes with a lot of pain and compliance, and keeping it private is the best way to grow.
Yeah.
But
so I think more than a milestone, and sometimes I'm very, very scared that, and I've seen this in the last 7.5-year journey, is that people end up doing what they are being asked, what the external world is asking them, right? So if your investor is saying, okay, what's your gross margin, what's your growth, you're chasing that. Suddenly, externally, everybody must suddenly, ekdam se this wave of last 1 year has come, profitability, pad, everybody is doing that, right? And suddenly, in the next year or next to next year, we'll hear, cash flow positive, is your business generating cash, forget profitability, is this generating cash, right? So suddenly again, there will be this wave of D2C, oh, there's cash generating, cash flow positive, right? So I think if you try to build the business and the milestones completely, I'm saying it's important to understand where the world is, where the world economy is, and all those things as an input into what you're doing. But if you define how you want to build a business and run a business basis someone who has not even built and run a business, then it's not right.
Completely.
Right? Well, if a journalist has to tell you, or if someone sitting in we said mentors, right? You have to look at their journey, saying that what did it take to build the business, right? And there are different stages to building that business. And hence, IPO is not a milestone in my mind. It is saying that, okay, at certain stage, there was a different pool of capital that you were actually, dipping into, which was venture. At the next stage, there is a different pool of capital, which will be maybe a PE. And at a different stage, there is retail institutional money that you will need to grow your business, right? So the right time to do an IPO is saying that when can you do justice to each of these pools? When you are in a growth trajectory, you can do justice to venture capital money. That's the time to raise venture. When you are and then it's not just equity money, but debt also. I am a very strong proponent of the businesses should be built in the mix of equity, debt, and different kind of instruments, because everything comes with their own benefit. Equity comes with one benefit, debt comes with the benefit in terms of saying that it just makes you a lot more disciplined about what you're building, right? That has seen various cycles. It can support you through different cycles. Similarly, when you get into public markets, more than a milestone, it's a responsibility. So you have to say when you're ready for that responsibility, right? Because when you commit, this is my number, you have to meet that number. Because it is a retail guy's money which is going into that business, right? It is many people's money. And hence you have to have that maturity. And that for me is a mark of a different trajectory in the business. So hence, more than a milestone, saying readiness for it, readiness for with great power comes great responsibility. As said by so I think it is very powerful to be in the public markets, and it feels great as an individual, as an entrepreneur, that your company stock is getting traded. People are buying a bit of it, but at the same time, they should make money out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And like, for example, with us, Colgate is one of our investors. One of the very few companies that did not leave India in 1989, 1990. It stayed back, and like people have made their net worths by public investing in Colgate stock from the early 90s. So for me, like, I just feel like amazing. Of course, the Reliance story is well documented and so on. But
absolutely, like people who were part of Reliance journey, like built their houses, got married. This is the money that they made through that. What a great thing! What a great feeling to create an enterprise that, can fulfill someone's aspiration and dream. Nothing more powerful.
Just because they gave you money. And
I mean,
it's amazing, right? It's actually amazing because you feel like thousands and millions of people are now part of your
of that journey.
I hope that by 2040, 2050,
Yeah.
that this wave of like the 2040, 2050, the 2021, 2022, like these are when a lot of companies were founded in spurts in India, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them start going public by 2030.
Yeah.
And then those public journeys become
Absolutely.
wealth creation journeys for retail investors by 2050. Because I'm hoping our lifetimes are long enough to see to see that happen. But
Yeah.
I do feel, for example, we have the opportunity for that to happen.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Before we open it up, Ruchi, to the audience, we do have viewers who come in, and especially people who watch you, and we haven't spoken about, and I never enter a conversation with a view to making it gendered in a way or whatever, right? And it oftentimes, for example, Vinita, we had an explicit chat.
Yeah.
Shantanu, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a woman entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I completely agree with you. And we both went into the discussion wanting to not
Touch that.
it became 90% of our conversation. It was very important, right? But this one has not become like that. But there are women who are watching you.
Yeah.
There are young founders who are watching you. There are school kids who are watching you. There are, just 2 days back, I met an IIM Lucknow batchmate who told me, my mother is addicted to your podcast. I said, cool. So there are people across the board who are watching. People who, I think the aspiration for them is kind of constant and significant, right? But any words of encouragement, caution, wisdom, from your experience to anyone watching who may be on the fence when it comes to either starting up or joining a startup ecosystem or being a part of it as an investor, whatever. So just would be great to kind of get, some closing thoughts before we open it up.
Yeah. So I think because you touched upon the gender bit, right? I would say that there was a time, right? When we got into college as well, and IIT, like there were hardly 30 of us in a batch of like hundreds.
Which IIT did you go to?
Delhi.
Delhi.
Right? And then, but if you look at it now, whether it's different field, right? That it is a journey. Everything is a journey, right? And I think we will see many more women in different stages of achievement. And I think an entrepreneurship as a journey is gender agnostic for me. Right?
You think so?
Yes, I think so. Right? Because if you have that as a bias in your mind, then you're killing your chances to achieve it. Right? And my rule here is to say that any bias that I can get out of a person's head, which can actually help them take the plunge, then I think it would be a successful discussion, right?
Wow.
Right? So I think do not, like many a times when we are in a discussion and we are, even things like you are discussing with your investor, many times we actually negotiate with ourselves.
Yeah.
Before even getting into the negotiation table, right? Even with the client. अरे वो इतना नहीं देंगे या इतना नहीं करेंगे. So we already killed half our chances by negotiating with ourselves. Right? And this is one negotiation that I would suggest that you don't have with yourself. And that is about saying, would my gender actually stop me from doing what I want to do? So I would say that bias, one has to let go, because it will not give you anything positive. It only has a downside.
Yeah,
so I think about
downside.
something which is going to have a downside. Right? And as anybody embarks on an entrepreneurial journey, I think it's important to just, think of it very clearly, right? These are my strengths. And play to your strengths. Do it as per play to your strengths. And never think that never ever is anyone a complete person. Right?
Yeah.
There is nothing called perfection, right? I as a person, I admit it, I cannot be a perfect mom with a perfect wife, with a perfect, business person or a perfect professional. It's very difficult, right? And you juggle multiple balls, something will fall. You should be okay with it, right? You cannot aspire to be, okay, I am doing everything is best, because the more you stress yourself with that, the more you try to actually, just be perfectionist at everything, you lose the charm of doing it.
You wake up, right? Like when you look.
Whatever, it's like you should be okay with your shortcomings. You should be okay with saying that I am. I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It cannot be.
It's accepting yourself for who you are.
Yes, I mean, I can sit here and say that, okay, maybe I'm not able to spend enough time with my kid. But it's like, okay, what can I do? Right? Okay, maybe I might not be perfect at it. But in whatever I have, I can do it. Can I be honest with my work? Can I be honest at whatever time I'm getting to do something? Can I just being honest at whatever you're doing in that space I think it's okay. It's okay to, not
Just
be
be-
that superwoman, superman and everything and a perfect husband and a perfect everything, right? It's fine. Everybody has their shortcomings. And as an entrepreneur, you should know you will not realize, but you will have many blind spots. You'll be eccentric, right? You will need people around you to cushion.
Yeah.
Right? You will need those people, whether it's at home, whether it's at office, right? I'll have my shortcoming. I'm okay with it. I'm not perfect. Nobody can be. Right?
Has it been a journey for you to like reach a point where you accept yourself who you are? Or
No, I
you've
think
always
it's a
done
journey
like
for
this?
everybody. I mean, just, sometimes you are in that journey when you use the word success, right? You always aspiring for great marks. You're always aspiring to be, you're always told that bas 90 se upar aane chahiye. You should get into this great institutions and great job and your salary and everything, right? But the fact is, sometimes it's okay to be not perfect at everything. Because then that breaks you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. We will open it up. Thank you so much, dear sir. You've said so many things that actually break a lot of barriers in my head. But yes, show of hands, we can just pass the mic around. Yes.
First of all, thanks for the really engaging conversation, both of you. So, coming from a consulting background, I actually felt that you go in a zone of you get away from execution after a point of time. Although I've not worked directly in FS, but with FS and even private equity, I feel you get away from execution and a lot more towards advisory or gyan, I would say. My question is that how do you, when you get to that entrepreneurship journey after McKinsey or whatever consulting, how do you make that shift from saying, okay, what I've done in the past few years, which has really been hard coding into me, which is more about gyan and which is more about, just advisory, and shifting towards execution. So like the question is that basically, the pros are there of working in consulting, that, you have such a great network that you guys are talking today and things like that. And you really know a lot of people in the industry, but are there some outright cons? And what is it that a lot of entrepreneurs are coming from consulting backgrounds?
Okay. So my view is that, first of all, consulting is a great career option, right? Why? Because in a very short span of time, you do get to see various businesses, right? And देखो, ज्ञान देने के लिए कुछ तो पढ़ा होना चाहिए, right? If the fact is, you should have been able to analyze something. If you're sitting in front of the board or the top management and saying this is what you should do, that has a basis, right? And I think consulting is a very phenomenal career which actually pushes you to analyze things better. And that analytical ability is very useful in business. ऐसे तो क्या, I'm an engineer, a chemical engineer. मैं कौन सी heat exchanger का काम कहाँ आज use होता है, right? But still, you are in a space wherein people around you are so driven that it pushes you to think, what more can you do? So what you should do, what you should not do. And I think everything, whether it's job or whether it's your education, is a learning process. And consulting is great to actually see what your boundaries are and push those boundaries. How do you actually synthesize things? How do you segregate that this is important? How do you prioritize things? So there are a lot of great, I would say, skill sets that you pick. the biggest thing is, how do you apply it? It's not a shift to say that, okay, मैं ये कर रही थी, अब ये नहीं करना है, but how do you apply it in daily life? How do you still get people to look up to you?
So was there a friction?
Friction from?
Friction from consulting wherein you're giving, wherein you're on the other side, wherein you're just saying that you can do this, wherein now you're on the other side where you actually have to do it.
No, actually consulting has changed a lot.
Okay.
There is a lot of implementation. There's a lot of execution. There are a lot of things tied down to outcomes. And I have seen a lot of that at McKinsey in my life. So and when I said that I love FS because of my experience at McKinsey as well, because there was a lot to do with execution.
I think a lot of the projects I did at McKinsey were like
Completely
integrated fully with the clients. Like we would actually be doing the work. You're right. We don't have the accountability for outcomes as much at the junior level, but as you get to partner, a lot of your fees are linked to outcomes. A lot of times you are at the client side for 2 years, 3 years. After the strategy is given to kind of help the clients along the way, you help them recruit. I think the gamut of problem solving, people management, relationships, execution of strategy, etc. is covered. I do feel that, at least personally, the time that it takes to execute is something that, at least my judgment on, is still kind of getting developed. मेरे को लगता है कभी फटाफट होना चाहिए या फिर कम होना चाहिए. It takes some time to kind of understand that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think consulting is a fantastic. It is just because of the breadth and the T-shape of experience over a period of time. It's a fantastic, it's a fantastic breeding ground for entrepreneurs because the skill sets are very applicable.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
without actually, you join a college to learn.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid to also learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we should be.
It's a great finishing school, absolutely. Yes, Nikhil.
Thanks, Ruchi and Shantanu, for an insightful discussion. And we learned a lot today. I have 2 questions to ask Ruchi. So, Ruchi, when you were talking about it's okay not to be okay. So, as an entrepreneur, we make daily certain decisions and not every decision is right.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do we, and then when we sleep at night, sometimes it's difficult. So, how you can guide budding entrepreneurs like us that how we should be able to counsel ourselves that. And second, being a woman, as you know, that women treat their business also as babies. So how to balance your business as a baby, because as it grows, the priority is there. And then you have a family and children, especially growing children, they also need attention. So how do you balance between your 2 babies?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay. So, please. Your first question was, sorry, the first question was around,
It's okay not to be okay.
It's not okay not to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's okay not to be perfect. So, what I said earlier is that there is nobody else who will come and fix your decisions the very next day. The only thing, at least that works for me, is a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Now that's my most prized, you could say, possession. Or I would say I would thank God for at least giving me a good night's sleep, because that also becomes my indicator to say that, am I doing the right thing to get a good night's sleep? And that also becomes my benchmark for saying that, am I doing what I should be doing? So am I, if I have had a very hectic day at work and I get good sleep, that means I'm doing the right thing. If I am not sleeping and say, oh shit, मेरे से कुछ ऐसा हो गया, which will be, that means I'm on the right path for me. So hence my indicator is more like a good night's sleep. Means that even if we do something wrong, we wake up in the morning, get back to office and fix it. And there is nobody can do 100% correct things. But what we have as an ability is, if you've done something wrong to someone, go and say sorry. But उसके लिए आपको सुबह उठ के जाना ही पड़ेगा और आपको ही बोलना पड़ेगा, right? So I think there's nobody else who will come and do it. And it also ties up with your second question, that as a woman, you need to balance a lot of things, right? I think it's not just as a woman you need to balance a lot of things. What you need to appreciate, which I do now after this journey, is the fact that there are other people also around you who are balancing things. as much as you need to. Your spouse is balancing so that you can actually take care of your career. Your kid is balancing as well because you're not able to spend that much time with your kid, right? Your parents are balancing. My parents are balancing. Why? Because I'm not there, then they will make sure that they are there for my kids. So they're also balancing. I think once we can shift our mind frame to see that who all are ready to balance along with me. It's like a dance, right? If you can go and you want to keep a group together, right? You will come along with me to actually do this dance. And second is, if they've come along with me, can I appreciate the fact that they're balancing for me? I think both these skills become very important. So hence, having the right ecosystem, help in terms of some full-time help, or just whatever is your infrastructure you want to build. So first they're saying that I am acknowledging the fact that I will not be able to do it alone. I need others to balance along with me. Having that conversation or having those set of people who can balance along with you. And second is acknowledging that they are balancing along with you. Right? A great example is your own kids. You think that they need you 100% of the time. But if you feel that they can come along and balance with you, then suddenly you set yourself free and you set them free, right? You're not saying, अरे ये तो इनके बच्चे तो कितना इनके साथ रहते हैं, मेरा बच्चा एकदम मेरे से hug नहीं करता, इतना पास नहीं रहता है, is not that clingy, am I doing something? Then you are not either giving the opportunity for your kid to balance or appreciating that your kid is balanced. That's what I believe.
Firstly, thank you so much for the session. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm currently a student also doing chemical engineering. Recently ventured into something of my own.
Yeah.
But I come from a family business background. The question is predominantly, my father and I usually have conversations more about what is more important, marketing or product? What's more important? Do you burn money when you start out?
Yeah.
And questions are also around when do you raise or how do you raise? So the broader question is, what's the difference between a traditional business and a startup? And how do you govern those conversations, especially with the ones you're closest to, family?
Is your dad in the audience?
No.
No.
Okay, so I think this is a topic in itself, and maybe we should have a separate PowerShop session. So there's no right answer, right? And now I can go back to my consulting days and say it depends.
It depends.
Okay? So, and there's nothing as a startup or a business. A business is a business. Traditional business, it's just that it's a fancy word, starting up, right? You're starting up. You're an entrepreneur, right? Now, but India is a land of entrepreneur, right? You will find why is microfinance so popular in India? Because it's the individual lady in the house taking a 5,000-10,000 loan actually is setting up an enterprise. Right? So, first of all, business is business. And simple rules of business is the capital that you put in, you should get a return out of it, right? If not today, then in future, right? And the capital that you're putting in today, which will give you returns in future, is called asset that you're building. And that asset can have various forms. What are the different forms of the asset? You set up a factory with your dad. You put 5 crores into it. That's also an expense. You had to get that 5 crores to put into it. But you do not recognize it as an expense. You called it an asset. Similarly, you want to build a D2C business. What's your asset? Your brand is your asset. To build that asset, you will need to do marketing expense. It's just a different type of expense but it is an asset that you build, that brand that you build, and hence you have to put that 5 crores to build that brand. So the way to think about any business is saying that, okay, is it a business where I need to build for the asset? If that asset has to be built, what's the money required to build that asset? Do I have enough of that from my own pocket that I can put in? Or I need to work with someone to actually put in that money? What is to be very clear is that asset, आप plant लगाओगे first day, right? It will not give you the returns, but it will give you the returns at some point in time. The expense that you do in building a brand will not give you the return today, but it will give you the return tomorrow. So everything is about return of every penny that you put in the business whether today or tomorrow. So I think if you apply that rule, most probably you'll have interesting conversations with your dad and get him to invest in whatever you're doing.
That's a very interesting question. She's absolutely right. I think the way to look at an asset is through value or through yield. Okay, and they're two different things. Real estate, for example, is a high value, low yield asset. Residential real estate. You'll buy a house, you won't get a lot of rental yield on it, but when you want to sell the house again, the price would appreciate. You make returns on it, not from the rental yield, but from the sale of the house. Now, the asset should be in a market where there will be demand in the future, right? Similarly, it's a business. She said, there's no startup or traditional business. It's a business. A business where you get yield through share of profits via dividend. As you say, if I want to put 1,000 rupees for a share, if I get 5 rupees of dividend every year, I only need 200 years. But if the 1,000 rupee share gets sold for 3,000 rupees in 5 years, and there's a market for that, then the asset makes sense. The question is, how do you allocate capital? As a management and as an investor both. That's the only way you will define a successful business. And most people don't understand yield versus appreciation of asset value. And distinction is important to actually understand. Startups obviously rely a lot more on on the valuation as opposed to yield. But hopefully, when you reach off-business scale, for example, now they might probably be a dividend business where that starts making a lot more sense and sale of the asset itself is secondary. So it depends a lot.
Thank you.
Awesome. Just pass the mic to Go for it.
Sorry. Hi, Ruchika. My name is Sibi. Apologies, I'll remain seated so others can see you. My question is related to B2B and B2C field.
Yeah.
B2B is altogether very different. A lot depends on trust, reliability, and maybe the credibility factor for people to continue with it. What brought people to off-business in the initial stage, the marketing strategy? B2Cs, we can say, run ads, Insta, if FBI or do something, you can still get people on the page. Unlike B2B, what really brought people to you, your business, and what made them sustain, throughout off-business tenure?
Are you talking about customers?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So, B2B as a business is a lot more sales-driven than marketing-driven. B2C as a business is a lot more marketing-driven than obviously it translates to sales, right? And every business has a very different way to approach their customers. For us, we were primarily sales first. And for us, we were not spending in marketing. What we were doing essentially is saying that, okay, we will develop some tools as well, in addition to sales. So sales was always our first protocol in terms of how to get customers in. And second is saying that, okay, how do we build some smarter ways in which the customer is coming for something else, but ends up leaving information so that my sales becomes more efficient. So we did build a tool called Bid Assist. Like, for example, B2B, a lot of people actually want to apply for tenders. They don't get everything in one place in a very seamless fashion. So we built that tool in parallel. So people come, use that tool, leave their information, and my sales is becoming more efficient because of it. So hence, my customer acquisition cost on a marketing side is not there. But yes, there's a combination of sales plus some of the smarter ways of actually getting the lead funnel in.
I'm a sales professional, B2B sales professional, so the question came from there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Silly, right?
So this is Jinal. Thank you for the very insightful conversation. Since you both are from McKinsey, I really have a question that why do businesses really need consultancy? Isn't it the fundamental flaw that your team isn't good enough that you want an external person to help you? And if they need it, like when, at what stage do they need it?
Yeah.
So
She's already done the second year weather.
Yeah. So why do businesses need consultant? Okay. So you are most familiar with business consultants because that's what you hear. And because we've been in McKinsey. But not everything can be done by an institution or a company by themselves, right? Like for example, you need to deploy a tech tool. You might get some other consultant to do that. If you look at, there are a lot of technology consultants. Right? Suppose you want to raise capital. Maybe you can't do it yourself. You will actually go to an investment banker who is a consultant because he can get networks.
So I think every business has their value in terms of what they deliver as a service, right? Whether it's technology as a service, whether it's business acumen as a service or insights as a service. Why do you need consulting from a business perspective? Because that's your specific question. Is the fact that you don't know what you don't know about yourself, right? If you don't have any external orientation, like for example, हमें सबको पता है कि हम बीमार हैं तो प्रोटीन खा लेनी है. But if there is, you feeling feverish, fever has not gone away for 3 days, and then you're feeling some other symptoms as well, who do you go to? A doctor, right? So it's like a doctor, or it's an opportunity for a business to say, okay, I've reached a particular scale. I don't know what I need to do in the next level of scale, but there might be someone who has seen multiple industries or multiple such institutions and can get the best practices for me. And why does that become important? Rather than me putting, say, 100 crores towards a business without knowing whether this is the right thing to do or not, why don't I spend 1 crore or 2 to actually figure out what the entire strategy is going to be? And then actually I put it. In fact, when you put up a plant also, you go to a technical consultant to see whether the drawing is right or not. So there is value for experience. And there is actually benefit of that experience. And nobody will actually pay great dollars as if there is no great outcome of it. So if you can spend that one to actually generate 10 or 100 out of it, it's worth the while. So that's...
Definitely, but some people even hire them or like go to consultancy in the very early stages, like for really basic, like their fundamental things, and they ask for consultancy for their product, let's say.
Yeah.
Like very initially, like how do I make this product for example, like that is the question. So you are essentially making that brand for that product, and you're asking somebody else that what should I do? Like, I get it. Like if you are at 100 and you want to go at 1,000 and reach 1,000, then it is fine that you're asking some people, am I doing the right thing, or is this thing right, or what should I do? That I get. But when you're in the very initial stage and then you go for it, I don't just understand the...
No, even I don't understand. So
yeah, it should not happen.
So even I can't answer that question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shantanu and Ruchi, for a great chat.
Yeah.
My name is Shiv. Ruchi, my question is for you. You've done something that most people, the average person, would consider very difficult. Right? People find it hard enough to build one successful business. You've built 2. And as we were talking earlier, you've balanced all these different roles, which also people say is very difficult. In the process of this journey, I'm sure a lot of things that seem hard to us seem easy or normal or very casual for you.
Yeah.
What is something that still feels difficult for you today? I'd love to know that.
It's a lovely question.
It's actually a tough question.
Nothing. That's all.
It's like he asked what feels difficult. I think it's been very difficult to answer questions from me. Yeah, no, I think there are a lot of things in terms of, you might look at a person and say, okay, maybe it's easy. But every day at work, it has its own challenges, right? It's not a question of saying that, have you become better? The fact is that the institutions that you're a part of, and I'm not saying I built that or just 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 of us. It's just that the institutions that you're a part of have their own challenges at each and different levels. Earlier challenges would be execution. At some stage, the challenges are HR. At some stage, the challenges are more in terms of saying that, okay, what next, right? Getting from that 100 to 200 to 1,000, right? So I think I would be very scared if I become complacent. I would be very scared that I would say that, things are easy. So I would make my own life much more difficult by doing that. But I think there are challenges each and every stage of whichever organization, however big it is. And that's what keeps you excited as well. So for me, I think I would have the same difficulties in terms of trying to balance everything. And I would have the same challenges in terms of, when Shantanu said self-doubt at stages, because the type of problem changes, right? And it is not monotonous at all.
because every day you will find two people having a disagreement, which is a new challenge. Every day you will find, something crashing. There will be again a new challenge. And that's what keeps you excited as an entrepreneur. And I think for an entrepreneur, it is not just setting up your own company as an entrepreneur. I think life as a consultant, as McKinsey, was equally entrepreneurial. It's about how you think about what you're doing. Each and every person who works at OfBusiness, Oxyzo, etc., for me is an entrepreneur. They're trying to build something, right? And all of them have their own challenges, difficulties, and it is still as difficult as it was 7.5 years back.
That gives the rest of us some hope.
Yes.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you so much.
Hi, Ruchi. I'm Ankit. I am here with my co-founder and wife, Sevza.
Hi.
We are from Agra, and we are running a B2B marketplace. It's a B2B platform for footwear industry.
Okay.
And we are, our customers are brands, footwear brands. Some big brands are also our customers. So when we approach investors, what we are doing is we are making processes simple for the brands. Earlier, they are dealing with some traditional manufacturers, and now we are also connecting them with smaller manufacturers by standardizing their processes. So when we talk to various investors, they see that what processes we have implemented. There is not too much of AI, ML, all these things are not there.
Okay.
We have implemented automated emails are there, automated chatbots are there for our customer. And we often get that you have processes, but tech is not there. Have you also faced such problem because your business is also in the very non-traditional kind of things in our business?
Yes.
So what is your take? Like, how do we, and this made us to search for some heavy AI ML tech to be integrated into our business. We got connected with one of the startups, but we decided that no, because if we integrate that thing, we buy that thing, it was very costly.
Yeah.
We will be forced to implement it, whether it would be useful or not. So we decided not to go with that. Still, we are trying to answer to the investors by saying that because we are the first ones who are doing these things in the industry, no one is doing. But still, we find it difficult to convince investors on the tech part.
Okay. So I can completely relate to it. Okay. So please sit down. So I think we should definitely connect after the session as well. See, each business is different. Each business is different in terms of when your investor is talking to you, in terms of some of the terms that they would use. They might have seen a B2C world or a D2C world, right? Which is very different from a B2B. First of all, what is to be very, very strong is not a tech story, but your proposition, right? What is it that you're delivering? What is the economics of what you're delivering? When we were discussing about saying that there have been very difficult phases in terms of raising money as well, it's because we were talking lots more about the proposition and the economics. Right? And remember one thing, you're building something because you believe in it, not because you have to build something for an investor. You just need one investor, right? And one investor can relate to it. If there's 70 who say, no, you just need one. You don't need the entire world to come and say that you're great. And this is the best tech that I've seen. I mean, not maybe the right forum to say that, but half the people don't even understand the tech. अब AI मैं सब बोलोगे but नहीं समझ आता यार, काफी लोगों को नहीं. So उसके पीछे मत जाओ जिसको खुद ही नहीं पता उसको क्या चाहिए. आपको पता है आपको क्या चाहिए, आपको पता आप क्या बना रहे हो. But the only important thing is the fact that don't chase a valuation saying that it's a tech story. Say this is the business. At the end of it, when we discuss IPO markets and everything, you'll be valued out of some metrics. Be honest to those metrics. Build the tech that is required by your business. There are enough components of tech which is required in a B2B business. For example, your customer actually ordered something. Can you see it on his app? Right? Can you see the status? Can you see the logistics tracking? Because that's important for him.
कब आ रहा है, कब बिकेगा मेरा माल और कब वो will give the desired outcome, right? Similarly, it's important to have a seamless ERP internally. Why? Because in B2B world, taxation is the most important thing. GST is the most important thing, right? But any taxation changes, your ERP should be able to adjust to it. You need to have a tech to actually manage warehousing very well. Okay, what is your inventory? How much is going in and out? Not because of anything else, but for your own controls. B2B, you cannot make a mistake in terms of saying that you lost the full shipment, right? So those are important elements of tech. So you should be very sure what elements of tech that you want to build. And this is a story. If you put in all your money and you end up using only 40% of the tech that you built, then you're doing disservice to the business you wanted to build. You first build the business in B2B. You always mimic the tech that is needed for your business. And then after a stage, you say that, okay, what can I do differently, innovatively, which can actually open up a completely new domain for you. So I think technology for us, for a long time, we always used to say, in fact, I'll refer to not just the B2B business, but for Oxyzo Financial Services also. We always say, we are a tech-enabled company, right? Because we are more efficient in terms of our operating costs. We are more efficient we keep the customer in mind in terms of what he needs. And then proudly say 90 to 95% of the tech that we have built is something that we use today. That's the benchmark.
Yeah? Thank you.
Awesome. Last couple of questions, then we'll kind of take it offline as well. Then we'll kind of, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for your time. So my question is more on like, how do you prioritize in terms of work and decisions that you take? So it's like on a day-to-day basis, how do you kind of tell that, okay, this is something that can wait and there's something that is important and you want to, this call needs to be taken now, or is like, this can be something that can wait? So mine is more on the prioritizing both on the work that you want to do and the decision that you end up taking for that kind of the task or whatever is that. So is there some situation that you felt that this was tactically something that you did, which you felt that was a decision you took on prioritizing in terms of taking a call? Yeah.
And so I think if you're in the process wherein so much is happening around you, you just don't have the luxury of procrastination, right? So rather than not taking a decision, you have to be in a state that you have to take a decision and you should be okay with it, 20% of it going wrong. So I think वो prioritization कि अभी ये decision लेना है कि बाद में लेना है, वो option ही नहीं है. But at the same time, there are a few things which need assessment. The important aspect is saying that this needs a little bit of detailed understanding, and hence it should wait, or you should actually have someone work on the 4 or 5 questions in it. For me, while taking decisions, one of the most important thing is ask smart questions. Your experience will tell you what are the things that you should ask. Always ask questions before taking a decision. Right? You should not be in such a hurry that you don't ask those questions. You should ask 3, 4, 5 questions, because the person who you are asking that question will make sure that they have actually done their homework before coming to you, because they don't know what they can expect as a question. So if someone has already done a lot of work on it, it makes decision making easier.
I really like the important urgent framework, by the way. So any decision or anything that you need to do, just like figure out how important it is, how urgent it is. Not important, not urgent, that quadrant is not inconsequential. Important and not urgent is where you spend time and you kind of really make sure that you get the answer right. Not important and urgent, delegate. Important and urgent is a quadrant where if there are a lot of things a lot of the time, then you're doing something grossly wrong. That quadrant should mostly be empty. Sometimes something should come up there. So if that quadrant is full a lot, that means there's something wrong with management for you to kind of step back as a prioritization needs to be better. Mostly it's between the important and not urgent, which you need to spend time on, and not important and urgent, which you need to delegate.
My question is actually to both of you. For a minute here, if you were to imagine that you didn't have that McKinsey experience in between, how differently do you think you would have built these brands?
How differently, in a good way or a malab?
Without McKinsey, would have done it differently, maybe. Or is McKinsey irrelevant to how OfBusiness and Oxyzo is built? I can take a stab at that.
Please.
I'm a huge believer of the fact that McKinsey was my first job. I don't know, was it your first job?
Second job.
Second.
Yeah.
It was my first job. So I joined at 23. I left at 27, 28, started up, right? And I've never worked anywhere else. I've only been a consultant at the firm. 28 partners at the firm and 6 clients invested in Bombae Shaving Company continue to mentor, interview, recruit for us, be on the board, etc. So I can safely say personally that I owe the firm not only for the experience I got there, which was of course important, but for the holistic mentorship and investment that they've taken on me financially and otherwise, and continue to do so. Of course, I was shaped a lot by how to think and all that. So maybe I wouldn't have built out the company fundamentally differently from a execution standpoint, but I just think the way we have built out the value system, the way we think about problem solving, the culture of the company, our people processes, the language we use is very McKinsey. And it is good and bad both, honestly. But that's the only world I knew. So it would have been very different. I would have been extremely different. My access would have been different. My ability to raise capital, my confidence would have been very different had I not been on the firm. So for me, it's played a huge role. I
think he's covered it all. Say, whether McKinsey or not, I see experience is of a lot of value. I don't want to restrict it to just the institutions we have been with, because every institution that you've worked with, and I always say worked with rather than worked for, because that brings along a lot of people that you're connected to. That actually helps to explore your own self, right? And these days, I see a lot of people who are looking at jobs in a very short-term manner, but the setting that makes you comfortable to actually explore your potential is the best experience that you can get, irrespective of whether it's McKinsey, whether it's, now, because you said consulting, say BCG or anybody, right? Wherever you can explore your full potential is the place to be in, because that's where you will be successful in your own minds, right? And in that process, you will learn a lot of things. In that process, you will meet a lot of people who will come along with you in your journey. So it's irrespective of the institution that, the quality of the institute. It matters that what experiences you get as a consultant or as an institution, but it's about how much you push yourself, how much do you learn about yourself. And that can happen at any great institution which has the right frameworks in place, which has the right value system in place, and which gives you the right opportunities to just keep flexing yourself.
Last one, sorry. Last question. Okay, last question. We obviously will socialize here as well. Yes, somewhere at the very end. There's someone in right here.
Right in the front.
Okay. We'll take it.
My question is for you, Ruchi, that you mentioned that, how for you and Ashish, mutual respect works a lot. Trust factor plays into, how things have gone well. How does conflict resolution work when it comes to both personally and professionally, and does it play into each other, or how does that work or function?
So conflict resolution, आपने खुद ही बोल दिया resolution. Conflict has to be resolved, right? I mean, it's like, you married? You not married. Yes, okay. The thing is, the biggest, and it's not about me, Ashish, or anybody. It's like, when you come together as a group of founders, right? You have each other. You will have conflicts, you will have disagreements. But then once you take a decision, it's a collective decision. And you go out there and execute. You cannot come back and say, listen, you took this decision, this went wrong. Right? You think of it like this, and this is, the implication on the business. I think
the trust factor across all of us in the top team matters, because you will always have conflict, you will always have diverse opinion. But then, toward the point that Shantanu also made, is the fact the intent is right. If the goal is right, and that's why first thing you have to do as choosing your partner in business is the fact that whether you have the same value system. Like for us, all our value system is saying that, okay, how are we profit oriented? How are we oriented towards unit economics? So those are some of the basic parts of what defines us as company first, and how are we ensuring X, Y, Z. It's very similar to actually when it's like, say you would be looking for your better half, then you would have common values saying that, okay, maybe I want a person who is career oriented, or I want a person who's good to my family, whatever. Those could be 2 or 3 of your criteria, right? And you will try to match that criteria. So I think the intent is the most important thing, whether personally or professionally. And if there is alignment on that intent, then it works out. Even in conflict, because to resolve conflict, you always go back to the intent.
Do you think, like, because, I mean, you're involved both personally and professionally, it plays into each other? Do you think, decisions or conflicts in one sphere impacts the other and the other way, right?
Okay, I think you figured out a way.
All right, last question there, I think, from the lady in white. So I don't remember your name. I know we got introduced.
Hi, I'm Deeksha.
Hi.
Okay, it was so delightful to listen to both of you. I think I can listen to you for hours. But my question is, I have a content marketing agency, which I started out, like I'm 26 and I started when I was 24. By default, it happened. But when you're young and you start out and things become good, like you go from, you literally have nothing and you go from 0 to 10 and life becomes good. Then you get into a comfort zone. And now, like, your parents are happy, your friends are happy, you're happy, everything's good. But that comfort zone is not good for the business because you just stay at 10. So how do you avoid being in that comfort zone for very long? And how do you grow out of it and take your business from 10 to probably 50, 100 and so on?
I think that's all about aspiration and the vision that you have for the business. And in fact, more than the why is a founder or a co-founder called so, or an entrepreneur called so? ऐसा नहीं है कि हमारे में कोई बहुत बढ़िया skill है जो मतलब I can do and you can't do or someone else can't. All of us are same. All of us have that skill set to do it, right? What differentiates is the aspiration. And then gathering and galvanizing people towards that aspiration. So if your aspiration, if you are in the comfort zone, your business will be in the comfort zone. If people around you are in the comfort zone, it will be. And there is no harm in it, by the way. It's a choice. Everything is a choice. It's like you said that you are happy. If you already attained nirvana and happiness, then that's great. Or there's nothing beyond happiness, right? But if you have that aspiration that keeps sticking in your mind that, it should be bigger or it can be better, then you've not really achieved that, right? So it depends upon what makes you more happy. Right? If your business to the next height will make you more happy, you will obviously strive for it because that's happiness, right? So pursuit of happiness.
I'm very envious of people in the comfort zone. No, like a comfort zone is great. It's comfort zone by definition. It's an awesome place for me. Which is right. I think aspiration is everything. But enjoy it. Like, if you build it's a 2-year-old business from what I understand. You're profitable. You are, doing something at such a young age. Enjoy success. And I just feel like life kind of passes you by when you're impatient. And I think they're so growth driven now as people. I think at some point, like being lesser anthropocentric might be a nicer thing. But all the...
No, but the country needs it, Shantanu. Don't do that. We're still in developing nation. We need a lot of entrepreneurs. We need people to put in their heart. Because I think there's still a lot of to do for ourselves, for our next generation, and the generation to follow, right? So I think a lot of people say that, okay, can I retire at 30, 35? I mean, if you want to retire from, you've done everything, then give back to the society, right? Because we still have a long way to go as a country. I think so.
Fully. All right. Ruchi, this has been an absolute pleasure. Of course, I'm sure you will be get out over alcohol and food. But do we have something? Yes, we do have something to give you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Suddenly feel great about it.
But thank you so much, and it was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.